Ken, meanwhile, is getting super happy because Ken, who's been sort of an underling in Barbie land, now he's realizing he's part of the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is awesome. Ken is
No. He realizes he wants to be part of the patriarchy, and he's rejected from it, Ben, like you were.
Loving the patriarchy. Now, you might imagine at this point that the way the film is going to go is that Ken and Barbie are going to have to some sort of agreement about seeing each other as equal human beings.
Were you taking notes in the theater with a
Yes, he was. He had a notebook
paper?
with him.
How could you see that? Did you? He's got like he's got a forehead lamp on. He's writing in his notes, and everyone's staring at him, and he's just writing. He's like, God, yeah.
This is the U.S. intelligence agency, Mind Control.
2.2 million views. Barbie. Ben Shapiro destroys Barbie movie for 43 minutes. I want to. I want to see if we believe that he's being authentic here, because I refuse to believe that Ben was actually miserable for this movie, because I know he loves theater and musicals, and like I've heard like what he thinks is the best movies of all time are. Like, I'm sure he's going to lose his mind that it's like trying to put itself on the level with Kubrick, and he doesn't understand like that's the joke.
Yeah. Are we doing it now?
Well, folks, I just got back from the theaters seeing Barbie and Oppenheimer. I'm about to review both of them. I'm going to tell you which one of these is the best blockbuster of 2023. And which one
Barbie. He must have played with it too hard.
I love that movie, right, Ken?
For those of you who can't wait that long, I'm going to give my review of the Barbie movie in the most Oppenheimer fashion.
What the Run.
Crin. Oh my God, Crin. This is really weird.
That's so weird.
So the things I do for my audience, my producers dragged me to go see Barbie the movie, and I have thoughts. The studio is sponsored by ExpressVPN. Let me begin with my generalized assessment of the movie. This movie is not just a piece of shit. This movie is a flaming piece of dog shit piled atop an entire dumpster on fire, piled atop a landfill filled with dog shit. It is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. On every possible level, it is a horrific movie. The only thing that can be said for this film is production design. The production design is really nice. The costumes are really nice. Also, it's really hard to screw that up. It's really hard to screw that up because you literally have this to model after. All you have to do is this, but big. Okay? It's really not tough. But put aside all of the beautiful costumes, which is there for the ladies, and all of the production design and the Barbie universe and all of that. Every joke that happens in this film happens basically within the first 45 seconds of the film. So, for example, Barbie turns on the water and there's no water. Ooh, because...
That's literally not the first 45 seconds of the movie. That's at least 3 to 5 minutes in. Fail.
You know, like in Barbie house, there's no actual water. Do you get it? And then she drinks, but there's no actual liquid in the actual cup. Oh my God, because she's a Barbie doll. Oh, I get it. Okay, that's all the jokes. There are no more jokes for the rest of the film. The movie's a show. Okay,
what are you talking about? They do those jokes all over again, except they go wrong. You know, like they make the jokes funny again by making it out of the routine. Remember that? That was also a joke that was doing the same thing. How could one be a joke and the other one not be a joke? Oh my God. In your mind, Ben.
He's so dense.
Conceptually, the movie is a show. I want to ask this. Who's the intended audience for this film? Who's the intended audience for this film?
Not
I'll tell you
you.
the intended audience for this film is. And I can tell two ways. One, the previews on the film, and two, the people in the audience. So the intended audience for this film is moms and their 8-year-old daughters. That's the intended audience for the film. Bro, I know because the previews for the film were all kids movies. I'm talking like G or PG rated kids films. We're talking like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or Trolls 4 or whatever it is. Those were all the previews, right? All the previews are actually directed at what the audience is supposed to be for this film. And if you look in the audience, it's a bunch of moms, like youngish moms, middle-aged moms with their like 6, 7, 8-year-old girls. That's the entire crew.
And me.
This movie is not made for any of those people. In fact, this movie is made for no one. This movie is going to make a bunch of money week one because the marketing effort has been extraordinary. I mean, whoever's the marketing team over at Warner Brothers is doing an amazing job. Week one, this thing is going to clean up at the domestic box office. My prediction is going to just absolutely fall off a cliff after that. The repeat business on this movie is going to be non-existent because it was written.
See it again.
they literally like the director of this is like an A24 level director, you know?
Mm.
So it's like you hand the reins to a director on that level and to be like, oh, we're actually and here's the thing. Would you believe it, Ben? The movie is actually a serious movie.
Yeah.
He's taking the movie seriously. That's kind of the point. It's
He went in wanting to hate it and found every reason to hate it. That's the problem.
that's the thing, is I'm convinced that he's full of shit. He loves it.
I think
Two
so
people
as
who are
well.
so smug and self-satisfied, and Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach, that they have no audience. I mean, like, who thought it's a great idea? Let's bring
What do you mean no audience? They made high art films.
Yeah. We're 3 minutes in and he's been wrong on every
on the
point that
people
he
who wrote
said.
Lady Bird and Marriage Story to make a movie
Marriage Story
about a plastic doll that is
I've
generally
actually
played with
seen,
by
unlike Lady Bird. Marriage
5 to
Story,
9-year-old young
it's
girls.
fine.
So the basic idea of the film, they really have no basic idea of the film. They
What
don't know
was the
whether they
video?
hate Barbie or that we're supposed to kind of like
No.
Barbie. It
You
seems
have
they kind of
46
despise Barbie
minutes to get
as a
through.
fascist emblem, as we'll get to.
That's why
the
I'm
basic
yelling
sort of premise of
directly
the
into
film,
the mic.
politically speaking, is that men and women are on two sides of
He's
the divide,
literally
and they hate each
hanging
other.
on to
And
the
literally
point where
the
that
only way you
girl
can have a
calls
happy
her a
world
fascist.
is if the women ignore the men and the men ignore the women. That seems to be the final outcome of this film. I was trying to separate this into problems with plot and problems with character and problems with the politics of the film, but they're all intertwined because the thing is just a mess. It doesn't make any sense. Plot-wise, it makes no sense. Character-wise, it makes no sense. So let's just go through it from the beginning. There's going to be lots of spoilers, but believe you me, I'm about to save you so much time because this movie is 2 hours. It feels like it is longer than the Wagnerian
Bro,
ring cycle.
It
It felt
It
like
does
an
not.
hour.
I
Every
guarantee
scene
you this
is at least
longer than
2
the
minutes too
Barbie
long.
movie
Every
for
single
me.
scene, every beat is 2 minutes too long.
I guarantee you.
It is a bad film. Put aside the politics. Like, really, I was sitting there with a bunch of my producers. I'm a little bit more political than my producers. My producers were watching this, putting the politics aside. It is a bad movie. So why is it getting 91% on Rotten Tomatoes? Because
Wrong.
the way that it works for the reviewers is if you have the right politics, and those politics are sufficiently slyly inserted, then it will get a 91%
Let me
on
say
Rotten
something
Tomatoes.
because the reviewers are not relevant. It's the audience score. Let's have a look at the audience score. Wow, would you look at that? 86% audience score. Must be a
That's
pretty
lower
good
than I
movie then.
thought.
It is lower than I thought. I thought
I don't
usually
think
it's higher than the
I don't
critical
think people
ratings.
understand how high art this is.
I think you're right.
I think it's going over even snobby film critics' heads.
I think you're 100% correct because usually the audience is higher, unless it's like movies like Black Panther where it's really not that great of a movie, but the critics give it like a 99 for some fucking reason. I thought it might have been something like that, but
Okay,
this
maybe.
should have an audience score higher, but it doesn't. It is what it is. But I guarantee the reviews are missed all the points as well.
I'm gonna. Did Brett get an answer for her letter? Because if she did got an answer for her letter, I just want to write the director being like, "Have you read Ashalon?"
Even if the thing is just Drek. And I mean, boy, is this Drek. This is a
We should
Death
email
Star
her that anyway.
sized piece of Drek. It is like, that's no moon. That's a Drek station. That this movie. Okay, so let's jump
Are you
into it. I
making
have
up your
like
own
pages
slang?
and pages of notes on this horrific piece of. I mean,
I
my
think he
goodness.
is.
Okay, so let's start right at the beginning. So it's from the beginning, you know what this movie is going to be, and it's going to be a very cynical take on what Barbie is, which is so weird. I don't know why Mattel would turn over its IP to filmmakers who clearly hate the IP. It's as though you were going to make Toy Story, except that toys are all evil.
You could not incorporate
Oh my
the
God.
amount of Barbie history in that movie if you hated Barbie. Nobody
Yeah.
knows what magical earring Ken is except for Barbie fans and me, okay? I know about it because it's funny. You know, just like I know about the camera Barbie because it's funny. I mean, that one's not funny. It's more of like, why would you think that is a good idea funny?
Evil. They're all bad, and you're supposed to hate them, and you should burn them. Because that's kind of the message of the film, is that the Barbies are bad for the world. Okay, so it begins
No.
by trying to uphold the original
Wrong
vision of Barbie.
again.
What was the
Because they
original
use so
magical
much
vision of Barbie?
plastic.
We have Helen Mirren here to tell us in the form of a narrator, apparently played by Ruth Bader Ginsburg,
Fantastic
who's speaking
choice.
from heaven. And we get a 2001 A Space Odyssey flashback. Which again, who's the audience for this? Like, the reference points in this film, it references variously Marcel Proust.
I was thinking the same thing. When it opened on 2001, I was like, nobody in this theater understands this
Yeah.
reference and what's going on here. I was like, I'm probably the only one here who understands this reference.
I thought that as well. And that's when I sent you that message. I'm like, the opening is a banger.
It references Robert Evans and the cinematography of The Godfather. It references 2001: A Space Odyssey. This is a movie made for moms and their 7-year-old girls.
No.
Well, folks,
No.
wasting
7-year-old
Wrong
girls
again.
don't know what 2001: A Space Odyssey is. Why would you open your theory? This video is going to be called "Review of Ben." It's going to be the same title. Ken destroys Ben Shapiro's Barbie movie review for 3 hours. It's going to be this. It's going to be the length of Lord of the Rings.
2 hours of my precious time. 2 hours I will never get back. 2 hours where on my deathbed I will wish.
We're
I had
wasting
not spent
45
time
minutes
doing-
listening
It's
to
me
your
viscerally
awful
angry.
review.
But I'm going to talk to you about
A
something
Gene
that makes me
Factor to
much
go see
happier, and that
Barbie.
is
I didn't
our
hear a
trusted
thing you
privacy
said.
partner and premier sponsor of the show, ExpressVPN. All womanhood, but she fails. And she fails for 2 reasons. 1, she's actually a tool of the patriarchal capitalist system. And 2, the real world has rejected the message of Barbie, which is that women should run everything. Okay, so this is all not implicit.
He's
This is
really good at
explicitly
missing
said.
the
At
point.
the beginning,
Ben, the message is not women should run everything. The message is they're in a world where every job is worked by Barbie because of capitalism and the marketing of Barbie. And Ken is just Beach, right? Did you not understand that Ken is just Beach is like this? And well, Barbie is everything so specific. How did you not get that?
It is just Beach.
Yeah.
My favorite one was when they asked Barbie, "Is like, where does Ken live?" She's like, "I don't know."
It's not Ken's dream house. It's Barbie's dream house. I forgot what he calls it though. The like Sukalana.
It was
Casa.
it was
The
like
house Casa.
yeah, it was like Dojo Casa.
Doja Casa house.
Yeah, something like that.
I
But
think
there was
it's
4 of
Dojo
them.
Casa house.
Yeah, it was
monologue.
like house.
You have Helen
house,
Mirren saying,
house.
because Barbie can be anything, women can be anything. At least that's what the Barbies think. See, in the real world, women can't be anything. And that's one of the messages of the film. In the real
my
world,
God.
men run pretty much everything, which is weird. Who greenlit this piece of shit? I mean, Greta Gerwig is a lady. She's making a good.
The thing is that the best part is when Ken talks to the guy at about the patriarch, and he's like, "Oh, we're just really good at hiding it now." And he's not gonna get like they even show them hiding it when they go see Will Ferrell as the boss of Mattel. You know?
Yeah. It's like there's
living off
been
this.
plenty
Margot
of
Robbie
women.
is
There
playing the
was
lead.
one in the 90s and another one, I'm
Yeah,
sure.
and the other one doesn't exist.
And like the subtle hints of get back in the box. Like the themes
yeah,
are
and
there.
they're,
You're
like,
just
gonna
so
bind her
brain
wrist.
dead.
You know, like
Yeah. Crazy.
In fact, the entire cast, aside from basically Ryan Gosling, is women. So it seems like women are doing okay.
Also,
Again.
the fact that her response to getting sexually assaulted is to punch the guy in the face was a nice touch.
Oh, I don't remember that. Oh, did a guy touch her butt? Is that what happened?
Yeah.
It's when they're roller skating, right?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I do remember then. I'm
And
just
then
gonna
her
look up.
first
He
response
says
is to
that the
punch him in
entire
the
cast
face.
is men. I'm just gonna look up the top 10 bill, right, of the top billed cast, and just see how many are men compared to women. Except for Ken, right? Except for Ken, everyone is a woman.
It is a 2-hour movie. I thought
Look,
I felt
we
like
got-
an hour.
Oh, I'm covering it. I got to scroll down further. You go down just the standard search back, half and half. 2 men, 2 women on the standard search back for the top cast.
So I got 10. We've got Michael Cera, Kate McKinnon, Rhea Perlman, Greta Gerwig. That's Wikipedia. Let's go IMDb.
I'm just typing in Barbie cast, right?
Yeah.
Woman, man, woman, man, woman. Perfectly even.
Mm-hmm. Okay, top cast here. Woman, man, woman, 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 woman,
Oh,
woman,
IMDb.
woman.
IMDb is going to be in order of appearance.
No, it's top cast. This is top cast.
Oh.
So we've got Ryan Gosling. Anyway, chick, dude, chick, 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 dude.
There definitely is
dude,
more
dude.
women in the movie than men. But
100%.
as far as like the top cast, I don't know. And also like and like even like even the women roles, almost all the woman roles were like background roles.
Mm.
When like and like the a lot of the men in the movie, like the other Ken, like the Asian Ken,
The
right?
Asian one.
Like he has more screen time than most of the Barbies. Like I think he
Yeah.
has more screen time than Weird Barbie, and Weird Barbie is such a critical plot point.
Yeah.
Besides the meta logic,
Kate McKinnon was a perfect cast for that role.
the idea that
Kate McKinnon was perfect for that role.
Oh yeah, Weird Barbie.
Yeah. Couldn't have picked a
Mommy
better
dolls
person.
I think everyone was casted perfectly.
Yeah.
bad and insufficient. But then they criticized Mattel for discontinuing a mommy doll named Midge.
No,
And
they
Midge is
don't.
the pregnant doll and was
No, they
discontinued.
don't.
They're like, that's bad. But hold on.
No, they literally like, we don't talk about Midge. Midge was weird.
And everyone
Just
gets a
said that
jump
the
scare.
dolls about motherhood are bad. But then this one, don't look for any sort of logical coherence. There is a Citizens United reference. They say all of the members of the Barbie Supreme Court are women. And then they are speaking out at Citizens United that corporations are not people. It's literally a Citizens United reference. Who is the audience for this? Who is the 7-year-old girl who's like, yes, I too have
It was
a
based.
very informed perspective on the Citizens United decision. And then they say
Saying the
that
company
logic
is
and
not
feeling
for little
at the
girls!
same time, it doesn't diminish us. It proves that we are more than, right? It's all propagandistic. And then it sets up the dichotomy. The dichotomy is that men and women are in complete
rights.
and utter
Very
con-
based opinion.
What?
In the movie, they're like corporations are not people and therefore cannot have rights. Fuck you. That's a good take.
Unless you're in Delaware.
for distinction in terms of their roles. So women only exist if they are completely free of men, and men only exist if they are completely free of women. And the problem for Ken, the problem that's set up for Ken, is that Ken is dependent on Barbie, right? Because Ken is kind of secondary. And we also set up at the very beginning that Barbie doesn't like Ken. She finds Ken annoying. She finds Ken ridiculous, which again is sort of against the concept of Ken and Barbie. But the basic idea is that Barbie is an independent woman and Ken is completely superfluous. We then go to the beach, and there is a scene on the beach where the Kens are supposed to be the lifeguards, and the ladies are playing on the beach. And we get a series of gay masturbation jokes.
And his beach.
An audience for children.
It's just beach. He can't even beach in the real world.
It was actually a joke. It was more of a joke about how they were going to be gay and jerk each other off, Ben. Than it is masturbation. Because everyone knows that Ken is
You can't
gay.
even beat yourself.
Everyone knows that Ken is gay. Like, especially magical earring Ken.
They're talking about beaching each other off. Right? There's a
It was great.
Yeah, it wasn't funny to me until they went into like maybe the 5th time they said it, and then it just got really funny to me.
a line where Ken says to another one of the Kens, I'm going to beat you off. I'm not get it? You get it? Because it's like beat you off, but beat you off. And then they repeat that no less than 4 or 5 times in the span of 45 seconds.
If I wasn't severely injured, I would beat you off right now, Ken.
I'll beat you off with you any day, Ken.
Anyone who wants to beat him off has to beat me off first.
I will beat both of you off at the same time.
Beat both of us off.
Nobody's going to beat anyone off.
Bazinga.
I'm not gay no more. I am
it's just such a
delivered.
great gay masturbation joke. You got to go for it. I mean, what else will the 7-year-old girls in the audience think if you don't go for the gay masturbation joke on the beach? Clearly.
There was
clearly.
2 little
We get
girls
black female
that I
President
saw
Barbie
at
because
my
this is, of
show.
course, the greatest of all possible worlds. Kamala Harris, the Barbie version, is the president of the United States. And then we get the break, right? Then we get the actual plot point. Plot point number 1. Barbie has irrepressible thoughts of death. So again, at this point, you might be thinking to yourself, wait a second, isn't this a kid's movie? Isn't this supposed to be made for 7-year-old girls?
No.
This caught me so off guard.
Bro, his entire point relies on the previews that showed before the movie.
Yes. I've figured that, yeah.
That's literally what he said. His entire point of how it must be for kids because of the previews. Like,
it's reaching is what it is. It's
yeah,
reaching.
and then you're establishing an entire conclusion off a false point to begin with. This is literally a
it's
Barbie
a complete
conspiracy.
fallacy.
It's literally
It's a
a Barbie
complete fallacy.
conspiracy. This is how conspiracy theories work. It's a bunch of coincidences that he's throwing together, thinking these things are linked. It's literally a conspiracy video about Barbie.
Nope. It's about existential angst over mortality.
It's angst, Ben.
It's not Avatar: The Last Airbender, bro.
That's what this film.
When
He's
she's
probably
like,
gonna get mad, being
ever
like,
thought
"I
about
watch
death?
Wild House."
that caught me so off guard when she's like, I want to die. I'm like, what just happened? And then the entire movie's an existential crisis because she's stereotypical Barbie.
I have another criticism. It would be that I think like the like bitchy teenage daughter thing that they're going for, because like teenage girls can be really really bad, especially like the age that she's supposed to be. Which, by the way, Ben, that's who the other part of the audience was, 13-year-old girls. That's why it's PG-13. It was literally a mom and daughter thing that they go see with each other, where daughters who are having these things like angst and moms who have like depression from how their job is dead end and their kid hates them, they go and they enjoy the Barbie movie. That was like overtly like, that's like the key point of like, if you don't put any of the artistic shit in there, like that was the key point of like the audience that they wanted to get. Everything else is secondary. And I would say that the daughter needed to stay like the bitchy teen girl a lot longer. I think
I agree.
It was literally just the Shining joke, and then from there on she was totally with the mom all the way.
Yeah, I completely agree. She should have been adversarial the entire time. Or most
No, not the entire time. I just think there should have been at least 1 to 2 more scenes before she like came around.
I think to the point where the mum starts monologuing to the Barbies is when she should have seen it as well. I think that would have been a better position for.
Oh no, I just would like I would like the teenage girl's character to just be a little bit more fleshed out in her character transformation. For example, they all do a dance number and she's just sitting there with her arms crossed the entire time. Like something like that, you know, that type of scene. Not necessarily like an exposition scene would be necessary. She just needed a little bit more screen time before she was like totally on board with everything. And they do have that kind of, when the mom's singing, she's kind of staring at her.
Yeah, and then she starts singing as well.
Yeah. I just would have liked it a little bit more.
And that's why I'm saying that the part where she's monologuing to the Barbies to break them out of the brainwashing, that should have been the point where she realized, that should have been the turning point.
So like later on in that part.
Yeah, that's when I think it should have been the turning point for her character. I think that would have fit a lot better. Personally.
Also, before that point, you could also do a thing where she totally berates her mom about how this is all her fault, and then like immediately after that, she sees her mom fixing the situation.
Well, she did a little bit. She was like, "Oh, so this is all your fault."
Yeah. And that's the thing is, it's like I just think it could have been a little bit harder. That's all.
Yeah.
But I think they hit all the points that you should have hit, regardless. And this is like just like the smallest criticism if I'm trying hard to actually say flaws in that.
Now, again, interlaced through all of this is just more and more and more politics, right? One of the Barbies is a trans Barbie, and this is treated totally normally, as though this is a female Barbie with a voice, again, deeper than my own. So Barbie starts to have these irrepressible thoughts of death, and this comes along with physical symptoms, like, for example, her feet flatten out. Again, this is one of the few cute jokes in the movie, is that Barbie walks around, and just like a normal Barbie doll, when you take off the shoes, the feet are shaped like the shoe, like the high heel. But now she's turning into like a real world person, and so her feet collapse, right? And so she goes to see Weird Barbie. So Weird Barbie is a Barbie that has been played with too hard and has all the knowledge, not only about Barbie land, but also about the real world. And apparently there's a connection between the people playing with the Barbies and the Barbies. So if the people playing with Barbies are sad, then the Barbies also get sad. Weird that this has only happened to Barbie, because it turns out that lots of people are sad and have played with Barbies for a very long time. But that's the plot point. Fine. And again, the concept of like a Barbie that was played with too hard is very funny, because everybody has seen that before. And they somehow blow this. Somehow they make this into a not funny thing. So Weird Barbie is ugly, and she has bad makeup.
That's
so stupid.
They literally show how the little girls drew on her face. Like they have a cutaway where the little girls are drawing on the Barbie's face. Doesn't he have girls?
Yes, he does. I'm pretty sure he does. Yeah. Hold on.
They gotta be like babies.
Let me double check.
They gotta be like babies. Like, come on, dude. Like I had friends, like my mom's roommate. She has 4 daughters, right? And all of their Barbies had their hair ripped out.
and all the rest of it. And she informs Barbie she has to go to the real world and she has to find the person who is playing with her and she has to make that person feel better because that will heal the problem that she's having in Barbie Land. Okay, so we have our plot point, right? We have the thing that's going to launch us off into the rest of the movie. And then it's just a complete mess.
Yeah, he does
from here
have
on
a
in.
daughter.
At least to this point, it's kind of
Baby, though, not old enough to like. You're only gonna watch Daily Wire produced movies. Starting with our Little House on the Prairie action movie. What is it called? Raw Dogging on the Prairie. What's it? What's their action movie with Gina Carano? About
I have
the
no
prairie
idea.
about that pissed off people.
Daughters,
because it was a woman
daughters
named
10.
Badass?
Daughters
Oh,
10.
come on. If your daughter is 10, what a fuckhole. What a fuckhole, bro. Not only that, he has a sister.
Yes, he does.
dumb but coherent. From here on in, it makes no sense at all. Again, Kate McKinnon sets up the dichotomy that pretty much the makers of the film hate Barbie by suggesting that you can live in Fantasyland with Barbie and you can take the Barbie shoe, or you can take Birkenstocks, right? You can become like a Portland lesbian and you can learn about reality.
Yes, that was the joke. You actually got the joke on why
You got it, Ben.
that the
Well
Birkenstock
done.
was offered.
That's going to be the choice that you have to make, but not before she makes a joke about Ken and wanting to see the nude blob he is packing under those pants.
That's so. That's somebody said that.
Perfect for 8-year-old girls, ladies,
Okay.
mothers. Just
PG-13, Ben. Perfectly fine for 13-year-old girls, because guess what? 13-year-old girls have taken the pants off of Ken dolls and seen the blob there, and they're old enough to know what a penis is. You know?
Yeah.
be warned. Ken and Barbie head off to the real world to try to find the person who is playing with Barbie. And immediately upon arriving in the real world, Barbie is hit with an overwhelming tsunami of sexism. Like right away, boom, she walks in and a bunch of men just leer at her and say, "Give us a smile, blondie," which is some.
Ben, let me explain filmmaking to you. I know you're like actually classically trained in film.
She walks in
but let me just show.
and a bunch of men just.
Okay, see this shot here, Ben? You see how the background is out of focus, right? So she's cueing in to select people around her. You know, these people all over here, they're not sexually harassing her. It's just the subtle ones off in the corner, way off in the corner that she's noticing, Ben. You see? That's why they're out of focus, Ben. Because these are things, these are the things that she's not used to. See, it's abnormal for her. She's a fish out of water here. So these things are strange to her. So they stand out more than just the standard background, normal people of society, Ben.
Leer at her and say, "Give us a smile, blondie," which
happens, Ben.
It absolutely does.
Something that no one.
And then it cuts to people laughing at them. Was that sexual harassment, or was that people who would be laughing at something like that?
Under the age of 70 has said to a woman in the recent past, "Give us a smile."
Have you determined whether
blondie.
he's sincere or not?
Seriously?
Yet?
We
do you
get
think
Barbie
he's doing it on
explaining
purpose?
that all of the men who are leering at her and gazing at her, they have an undertone of violence. Everything's she's threatened. She's physically threatened because this is the real world. The real world is not like Barbie Land. In the real world, all women are victims. They are deep and abiding victims of the system, as we'll learn by the use of the word patriarchy no less than 10 times in this film. She gets arrested like twice for various crimes. Even the police officers are rabid, raging sexists. The police officers are hitting on Barbie. They're making observations about her appearance. Ken, meanwhile, is getting super happy because Ken, who's been sort of an underling in Barbie Land, now he's realizing he's part of the patriarchy, and the patriarchy is awesome. Ken is
no. He realizes he wants to be part of the patriarchy, and he's rejected from it, Ben, like you were.
Loving the patriarchy. Now, you might imagine at this point that the way the film is going to go is that Ken and Barbie are going to have to some sort of agree about seeing each other as equal human beings.
Were you taking notes in the theater with a
Yes, he
pen
was. He had a notebook
paper?
with him.
How could you see that? Did you? He's got like he's got a forehead lamp on. He's writing in his notes, and everyone's staring at him, and he's just writing. He's like, "God damn it!" He's like,
you might imagine that's where it's going. Wrong. That's not where the film is going to go. You might have thought that what you were going to get was Ken gets treated with respect as a person, and Barbie gets treated with respect as a person, and that's a better. Nope, wrong. In the end, not to skip ahead, Barbie Land just gets restored and the men are still subservient. That's the best. That's the best version.
Oh my
of the movie.
God, he missed the entire point.
Ken is walking around and he's
Holy
really
shit.
enjoying the patriarchy and all of this. And he explains that
such
men
an idiot.
rule this world. And he goes to Mattel, and all the members of the board are men. By the way, I'd like to see a corporate breakdown of the Mattel board.
The fact
He's
that
such an
Will
idiot.
Ferrell had a pink tie too was one of the funniest things to me.
I'll bet I can find it. Like the CEO of Mattel for 30 years was a woman. So there's that. They pretend that like Mattel
They say that in the movie. Ben, that's a literal joke in the movie.
is all run by men. So I just now I want to know who's on the board. Okay, chairman and CEO is a dude. The board includes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It includes 5 women. So it's 6 men and 5 women. Clearly patriarchal domination. Just wanted to look that up just for the sake of
dumb
accuracy. Whenever I do these reviews, like, oh, you're taking the movie too seriously. The movie takes itself this seriously, guys. It pretends to be a comedy, but it's taking itself super seriously. Fine. So it's all men at the top of Mattel, and they realize that Barbie and Ken have escaped Barbie Land. And this presents some sort of threat. What kind of threat? Because the writers are shitty. They don't bother explaining. They're just like, a threat. And Will Ferrell acts all weird and goofy, like Will Ferrell. And he's funny because it's Will Ferrell acting weird and goofy. But he's not funny because it's just Will Ferrell with no actual plot or dialogue to speak of.
He's such an idiot.
Ben, it's because they're capitalist, scared of losing control of the product that makes them money, Ben. Okay? Did you notice how, like, dystopian and cyberpunk inside Mattel was, Ben? Did you see that?
Just being weird.
Ben, do you know what cyberpunk is?
He definitely doesn't.
We'll fill that in later. There's so many places in the script where it's basically like the writers they left a gap and they're like, we'll leave a couple asterisks, we'll fill it in later. And then later they got there and they're like, nah, we'll just skip right over it. Fine. So they figured they got to track.
I want to know whose Barbie dream house they got for the background. Who brought it in? What, you know?
Yeah, Barbie and Ken. And meanwhile, Barbie is trying to track down the girl who's playing with her. And she mistakenly thinks that it is a teenage girl who is playing with her and who is unhappy. And at this point, she receives a lecture from the teenage girl about how Barbie has ruined the world and actually is fascist. How Barbie is a sexualized capitalistic emblem. How Barbie has created unattainable feminine ideals.
Where's the lie?
Barbie is ruining the planet with rampant consumerism. You get like this full lecture right in the middle of the film. It's truly awful. It's truly awful. She's called a fascist. By the way, it only sets up the only good line of the film. Truly, in my opinion, there's one good line in the film. And that is where Barbie is trying to contemplate whether she's a fascist or not. And she says, I don't control the railways or the flow of commerce. Now, there's only one problem with that line, as with the entire movie. There is no character consistency. Barbie is supposed to be an idiot bubblehead piece of plastic from Barbie Land. How does she know what a fascist is? How does she know about the flow of commerce? Like, again, just in terms of character consistency, like characters who actually are the characters, makes no sense whatsoever. So, meanwhile, Ken is wandering around, enjoying the patriarchy more and more and more. And he keeps asking men about the patriarchy. And at one point, he asks a dude about the patriarchy. And the guy says, well, that's not really the way that it works here anymore. He says, really? He says, no, it still works that way. We just hide it really well. Again, you can't even present the...
How many women are on your board of directors, Ben?
And that would be none.
the mild other side of the film. And this sort of nonsense continues. The first third of the film is about how Mattel is kind of bad for creating this fancy land. Second third of the film is about the real world evils of the patriarchy. Oh, the patriarchy. Oh, the patriarchy.
God, he's so an idiot.
Culminating in an idiotic line where one of the low-level members of Mattel is with the board and Barbie is looking for a woman at the board. And the low-level...
This is what he wore. I'm a ninja! No one's going to suspect me in the Barbie movie.
My favorite thing about
look
this...
like a little boy and I'll be dressed in all black that they won't notice.
My favorite thing about this is all the people that were photoshopping him.
Oh, were they?
Yeah.
Listen, liberal. That's literally what this picture screams to me.
Yeah.
Listen, liberal. I had to see Barbie.
He didn't talk about the dance numbers.
Man says, I'm a man with no power. Does that make me a woman?
See, Will Ferrell had a pink chair too.
No, you can't parallel park. That's what makes you a woman. Okay? And in any case, we get here a few obscure jokes about Proust Barbie, because again...
That wasn't a joke in the movie because I cringed at that, right? Did they make a parallel parking joke?
No, that was Ben.
Oh, that's why it was cringe. Okay.
Yep.
Are we sure about that?
100%.
Baumbach has to show that he wrote some of the script. He made a reference to Proust. Doesn't that make him clever? Ooh.
You know what's crazy? Actually, it happens once in the movie, but men don't drive cars in the movie. There's a whole like who drives the cars when they get in the car, and Will Ferrell is like, I'm in shotgun. You know?
Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily show men like actually sitting down and driving cars.
No, it doesn't. But
Ooh.
like
The only time it does is when Ken is returning from the patriarchy, and it shows it through like
the
a frame.
Suburban was definitely driven by dudes because they are the ones that got out and got Barbie to get in the car. But that's the only time I can really pinpoint
it. Didn't have a scene
No.
where it's sitting down where men are driving while they're talking.
No.
Next, he will make a reference, I would assume, to Victor Hugo. Wow. Proust. Woo. Idiots who think they're smart. It's total. Okay.
Yeah, you, Ben. You're the
Barbie
idiot that
escapes the
thinks you're
Mattel
smart.
building. They were going to package her up and they were going to send her back to Barbie Land. And she
No, they were putting her back in
her
her box, is what that was.
Yeah.
You fucking idiot.
Because they were taking control of their product again because she was a thing to them. You know, it's showing that, you know, Barbies are commodities, that they're things.
And she hooks up with America Ferrera. So America Ferrera is the actual one who's playing with Barbie as a youth, and it's her daughter who Barbie had originally approached. Twist! Okay, and she decides that in order to escape the Mattel executives, she's going to have to bring both.
Oh no, Ben. No. It wasn't about her playing with the Barbie in her youth. She was playing Barbie with her daughter, Ben.
And she was playing with the Barbie as an adult because she's depressed.
And because she misses her daughter. And because this is something that happens. All moms know this when their daughter gets 13 and they lose the kid that they were playing dolls with.
Both of them back to Barbie Land. Why did she bring both of them back to Barbie Land? No one knows. There's no actual there's no explanation as to why.
Ben, she brought them both back to Barbie Land because the script said so. Okay? Bro, they don't even fully explain time travel in like the Terminator movie. They literally are saying like they literally have a line. This is what I love, like Looper, for example. They specifically say that they're not going to talk about how the time travel works. They wrote that into the script. And Weird Barbie tells her, I don't know. It just happens.
It just works.
It just works, right? That's the point. It's just like, we don't have time for a fucking sci-fi plot development. It's not fucking Tron, Ben.
She's supposed to bring both of them back to Barbie Land. Supposedly, it's because she needs to escape back to Barbie Land, but she could do that without the
spitting everywhere.
But she decides she's going to bring them back. She brings them back to Barbie Land. Meanwhile, the Mattel executives are chasing her. Now, question: why are they chasing her? They achieved their goal. Barbie's back in Barbie Land.
Oh my god!
Why are they still chasing her? No one knows. It doesn't make any sense. They literally say there will be consequences you can't even imagine, and then they're like, "What consequences?"
That's the joke, Ben. That's the joke.
Jesus fucking Christ!
And like, fill in the blank. And some dude says something about a podcast with 2 trees. You're like, that's the laziest shitty writing. God bless it. Okay, anyway. So Ken, in the meantime,
I think he says it's a podcast hosted by 2 trees.
Hosted by 2 trees. Yes, that's exactly what he said.
He is already headed, while she was, futzing around over at Mattel, Ken is already headed back to to Barbie.
That's like one of my favorite lines in Elf. What they're proposing book ideas.
Yeah.
To the Peter Dinklage, and the guy is like, it's about an asparagus, but he gets nervous about the way his pee smells. And like, that's the funniest joke in Elf for me.
I'll have to watch it again and hit wait for it.
He has immediately established the patriarchy. So just to
it's such a throwaway joke. Like it's the same setup as the 2 trees thing. It's just like such an absurd concept. But it's like it's taken as something that's supposed to be absurd for then the boss character, to get mad and tell the person to shut up. Like,
just to point out here, the point of the film is that the matriarchy is amazing.
No,
women are amazing at everything. Ken walks in, and within 2 seconds, he has taken over all of Barbie Land.
No, Ben, did you not did you miss it when Barbie was crying throughout the whole movie? right? And like that, like the whole thing with Ken's character transformation is that like his life sucked. You know, it's literally like minimization of suffering for all. It's a Buddhist utopia at the end, bro.
Plan, and he has turned it into the Kendom within 2 seconds.
Which is a
Which
great
apparently
name.
the women are so unbelievably competent and brilliant and great at everything over in Barbie Land that an idiot man walks in and takes over the whole place inside of 2 seconds. Fine, so he takes over the entire
It wasn't
place.
2
We later
seconds.
learned that
Bro,
she was...
they literally made a genocide joke about how they didn't have resistances like smallpox and the indigenous people.
They did too.
That's why that was like one of the few things they did explain, Ben.
Yeah. They had no defense against the patriarchy, yeah.
Yeah, because
That's funny.
They had no resistances.
Fucking hell.
And that's because the women, they didn't know what was coming. We later learned they didn't have immunity. And the way that they get immunity is by learning to hate the men. That's the way that they have to learn to hate men. Okay, so Ken decides he's going to go back and he's going to establish his patriarchal system. We only learn this when Barbie heads back with America Ferrera and Random Daughter.
This.
And Ken immediately starts acting like the jerks
I
in the
really,
patriarchy.
really want a video of him getting a paper
baby
cut and crying.
The greatest of all insults. He calls her baby. And then America Ferrera is trying to explain to Barbie what exactly is going on. And she's like, it's just like the indigenous people and smallpox. They had no immunity.
Yes.
I'm so glad that I explained it only for him to actually realize that joke.
To explain
now
it badly.
You're mad. Now you're mad because something was explained, Ben. Okay.
Howard Zinn wrote the script. So the ladies in Barbie Land had no immunity to the magic of the patriarchy, the magic. The women were seduced into... So just to point out here, the actual argument the movie is making is that if women enjoy men, it's because they have been brainwashed by the patriarchy. They make this message explicit in just a few minutes in the film. And when I say a few minutes, I mean several years, because this film took years off my life. It is long, it is boring, and it's terrible. Okay, so the Kens...
Okay, first of all the women end up embracing and enjoying Ken at the end, except for Barbie.
Because she's had an existential crisis because she went
Barbie
to the real world.
Specifically rejects Ken multiple times. You know, like he tries to kiss her and make advances, and she rejects him multiple times. Like Barbie might be asexual.
She has no genitals until
are about to perform.
Well, no. They don't say that she has a vagina at the end. They just say that she's there to see
she's gone to the gynecologist.
Now imagine the gynecologist opens that up and it's like, okay, well, also maybe she got vagina surgery and had a well, as he would call it, a gaping wound put in her.
An axe wound
that they need to keep hydrated or whatever. They're so upset. Like, bro, the only reason I know so much about like gender reassignment surgery is because of these people.
Because
again,
they always share photos of it.
It's just like Mark Wahlberg and the other guys ironically learning to learn ballet to make fun of people.
It's one of the funniest jokes in that movie.
Okay, the Kens are about to have a vote to change the Constitution. Why? Why?
Because it was a
literally
fascist
just
uprising and they're trying to seize power.
What does he know vote for? Why are they voting? Like he seized power.
Vote?
Also, what is the breakdown demographically of the Kens and the Barbies? Are there as many Kens as Barbies? Because why would they hold a vote? The Kens appear to be in a minority in Barbie Land. There are a lot more Barbies than Kens. So if that's the case, why even do the democratic vote thing? Why not just seize the power? Because then you wouldn't have the rest of the dumb plot of this stupid film. So they decide they're going to hold the vote. And not only are they going to hold the vote, they're going to be very fair about it. They're going to hold it in 48 hours.
The Barbies weren't allowed to vote.
To make sure that the Barbies have time to actually form a counter plan. How would they do that? No reason. Asterisk. We'll fill it in later.
Dickhead.
Okay, so they decide they're going to hold this dumbass vote. And the Barbies learn about this. And Barbie is very depressed. Because Barbie realizes that all the other Barbies have been taken in by the patriarchy. And this is extremely bad. Now, here's one place where you have a serious...
Bro, can we talk about... All right, let's talk about this. Name a movie that's entertaining where the critical plot development is about an amendment for a constitution to gain rights. Right? Like there might be some movies that are like maybe some of the white guilt movies, you know, like Remember the Titans is a white guilt movie. really capitalize off of white guilt.
Yeah.
And being like, racism is over. Here's a movie called Hidden Figures about women and powerful. But the whole point of the movie is that the boss is mad because she goes to the bathroom too much. Yep, you guys got it. You definitely hit it right out of the park with that one. Woke as hell. You did it. You definitely totally aren't brain dead when you rewrote the script, or you rewrote the history for the script to make it hinge around a bathroom point, which NASA didn't, it wasn't a thing. Like, that was forced into the movie, and it was poorly forced in the movie to make it another thing that women get discriminated against, going to the bathroom too much. Like, what a terrible way to write in your woke astronaut movie.
Continuity area in the film. So, Margot Robbie, who plays Barbie at the beginning, half the time she plays Barbie is kind of stiff like a doll, and half the time she plays Barbie is just kind of normal. And so now she plays it super stiff like a doll. She sits down, in kind of 90-degree position like a Barbie would, and she keels over in the 90-degree position. Ben. And it would be funny, except she hasn't been doing it the whole film. Again, the level of inconsistency in bad filmmaking
has the depressive episode,
they needed somebody to actually sit down with them and be an adult in the room, and no one was there. So at this point, America Ferrera and daughter decide they've given up on Barbie because Barbie won't fight for herself.
So well. She sits down like a Barbie too. It's great.
And so they take off. And Michael Cera, for no reason, is in this film. And he's in the back of the car, and we don't know why.
Oh my God. It's Alan.
Bro, yeah, that's the point. Is that, like, he's a pointless, no reason character.
He wears all of Ken's clothes.
And like even after like he's the one who gets fucked over is Alan, right? He wanted out.
Yeah, and he didn't get out.
the joke when there's like, as soon as they figure out how to build a wall sideways. That was so funny to me.
That was another one that made me laugh out loud when nobody else did.
Confused about that.
And he serves no purpose other than to have a random fight scene. And also so that they can make a Trump building the wall reference. Right? They're apparently the Kens are going to build a wall to keep people from getting in or getting out. Now, here's the weird part. No one has ever entered or exited Barbie Land before. Why are you building a wall? What is the necessity for a wall? No one explains. It's just a dumb Trump.
What is the necessity for a border wall?
Hello, Ben. There was literally a point in the movie where they said this has happened before, you idiot. That we meet the character that did it later in the movie, you idiot.
Everybody who is friends with Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig can laugh and nod like the morons they are. And so the daughter and the mom, they decide, no, we have to go back and we have to save Barbie Land. They're going to save Barbie Land. And who do they go to? They go to wise, weird lesbian Barbie. They go back to Kate McKinnon and they ask her about this. And they bring Barbie.
Can't hear you. Mike's too far away.
It's just weird Barbie.
Yeah, and she's also a play on the Oracle character. Are we not going to talk about the pooping dog that she has pooping around?
It's very funny. I'm like, what the fuck?
Barbie with them. And they're going to try to figure out a strategy. How do they stop the Kens from winning the vote? Now, you might say to yourself, wait, aren't the women
winning, stealing?
Do they not have?
There's no
the Barbies were not allowed to vote.
Barbie, they had to have gone to a Barbie museum for research when writing this script.
Surely.
You know,
surely. But like
that's the movie Rat
thing.
Race.
Like that's the thing that everybody missed is the Barbies weren't allowed to vote. It was just the Kens voting.
Well, the Barbies didn't want to vote.
Yeah, right. So it was just the Kens voting because they removed
the
women's
Barbies
suffrage.
were brainwashed into not standing up for their rights. And by what? The patriarchy. Anyway.
Yeah.
You ever seen the movie Rat Race? It's like it's a mad world, except it's like with modern comedians, and they also have the Smash Mouth song in there, and it's the second best use of All Star beneath Shrek in a movie. But I mean, it's not great. But at one point, I forgot his name. I think it's like Leibowitz or something.
Okay,
the actor. The daughter sees a Barbie museum and she's like, Barbie museum, let's go. And they get there and it's Klaus Barbie and it's just a bunch of Nazis. And then they end up stealing Hitler's car. And the mom finds lipstick and she's like, says like, oh, it's so dark. And the daughter like puts on a hat. She's like, look, I'm Mrs. Hitler. And like, he like tries to grab the lipstick and it gets on his hand and he wipes it on the top of the steering wheel, and then somehow he ends up knocking the car lighter into his own mouth, hits the brakes, hits the lipstick on the steering wheel, and then he runs out onto the stage. It's a bunch of World War II veterans, and his mouth is burned, and he's trying to explain the story with the mustache showing up on Hitler's car.
That's
like
awesome.
Like I can't not think about that whole sequence in that movie when I hear Barbie.
I definitely have not seen that. I would remember
it's not
that.
a great movie, but that sequence specifically is gold.
Have agency, the women? They have no agency, apparently. So apparently the women have no agency, and they are a majority, and yet they have to be deprogrammed. They're going to be deprogrammed by weird Barbie and her crazy cadre of feminist heroes.
Would you believe it? But when suffrage happened, women actually had the majority because of how many men died in World War I. And then also, you know, technically, also the suffrage movement coincided with a Black liberation movement. So the suffrage movement actually did come out of what they would call, I'm not going to say the word, but it was the new N-word movement, except with an O, you know? And that's what we now call the Harlem Renaissance. We renamed it in the history books because new N-word with an O at the end doesn't exactly run off the tongue nowadays. Even though they will say it, I won't. But when we talk about the baseball leagues, we had an all-black league, and it was called the N-word with an O league.
Yeah.
People will say it in that with historical context. I'm not going to, but it does exist.
I love you guys.
And this is when we start getting into the real. You think it's propagandistic so far? Oh man, wait. Here is where we get into like the real meat of it. Okay, so we end up with Barbie complaining. She's
You know, Woodrow Wilson, one of the reasons of getting into the World War I was to kill black people because they were all voting on the other side, right? So he was trying to ensure that he won election, right? And he would have had the majority, but a month before the election to vote out Woodrow Wilson happens, women gain the right to vote 1 month before the election, and he loses because of the women being able to vote. Even though he was sending black people over the top to make sure they died in the war and wouldn't come back to have a majority. There's no evidence that happened, but come on. You know, there's no document that says he specifically did this to kill black people.
Yeah. It's a
prevailing
theory.
I mean, no, it's my theory because it's good history that people don't look at. But like, there's already conspiracy that World War I was avoidable for the Americans. They didn't need to get into it. And it's coinciding with the Harlem Renaissance. And this is a guy who screened a KKK film in the White House and rebirthed the KKK.
That's right. Woodrow Wilson did that, didn't he?
Yes. Very. And what's funny is both sides of the aisle now hate him because he was a progressive.
I always forget.
And she says, "Oh my God, they've brainwashed all the other Barbies. They've brainwashed all the other Barbies." She says, "Quote, either you're brainwashed or you're weird and ugly. There is no in between." And Weird Barbie says, "Tell me about it." And this is the perspective of the film. Either you're a third wave feminist kook.
You're an idiot, Ben.
Who hates men, truly hates men. Or you're brainwashed.
Hi, Barbie.
You're an idiot.
Hi, Ken.
There's no in between. There's no actual relationship between men and women. There can't be any sort of fulfilling relationship between men and women. There are no.
Okay, hang on. When did Weird Barbie say that she hated men?
She didn't. That was never mentioned in the movie ever.
What about the pony sticks? What do we think about the pony sticks?
I thought that was a very funny part. The horse is an extension of
pony sticks.
I don't know.
Decent males in the entire film. All the men are garbage. The only man who even appears mildly is America Ferrer's husband, who's just kind of a joke. He's there for literally 10 seconds in the film, making jokes about how he can't speak Spanish. That's his whole role in the film.
He's learning Spanish.
But Alan as well. He's talking about that's the only man. Did you forget about Alan? Everyone forgets about Alan, I guess.
other man is
The Barbies are
everyone.
indigenous to Barbie
So
land.
this is the perspective of the film when you come right down to it. Either you are brainwashed,
This is the perspective of the
or
film when it comes down.
you are weak.
This is the perspective of the film when it comes down to it.
I mean, look, if he can't
Weird.
figure out the basics of 1984, I didn't expect him to find the nuances of this movie at all. So
And
this
I'll
is
go.
unsurprising.
And Barbie's like, yeah, that's what Barbie says. I mean, the only decent male is Alan, who apparently wants to wear pink and probably is supposed to be gay. I mean, I think it's supposed to be pretty clear.
Ken is gay.
Really, the take of the film is that all the Kens are gay. That's really the take
Yes.
of the film, is that it's all
That's why they want to
homoerotic
beach off.
kind of stuff.
Let's beach off.
Anyone who wants to beach
He-
him off
he
has to
gets
beach
it.
me off first. I will beach both of you off at the same time.
And in any case, the filmmakers are so insecure with even their own script that they then have the narrator jet in to say, Margot Robbie might not be the best person to make this point, right? Because Barbie's saying, I don't feel beautiful anymore. And they're like,
Yes,
Margot Robbie.
that
They
was
literally jet in to say,
hilarious.
Margot Robbie might not be the best person to make this point. Then maybe you shouldn't have written the point. Then maybe you shouldn't write it like that. Maybe you should not be a writer. Maybe you could do that. Okay, no.
The point
this is
was
when we
that
get
she
the
is
full bore
stereotypical Barbie
thesis of the
you
film.
Idiot.
And guess what, guys? The thesis of the film.
What about the joke when the girl just puts glasses on and needs to take them off to be pretty? What about that joke, Ben?
Made by women, made for women, made starring women, funded by a studio that is largely staffed by men. The take
Okay.
of the film is that it is
Oh my
impossible to be a
God.
woman in the modern age. Absolutely impossible. And so we get this long speech of America Ferrera talking about how it's so difficult to be a woman. They want us to be this way, but not that way. They want us to be thin, but they don't want us to say that we're thin. They want us to earn money, but they don't want us to earn money. They want us to do this, and they don't want us to do that. They want us
Maybe
to
you should
answer for
listen
men's
to
bad
them.
behavior, but they don't want us to offend men. They want us to do this, and they don't want us. Oh my God, it's so
It's actually about how men are fragile right there, by the way, Ben. And this
Yeah.
is you being a fragile man,
Yes.
proving the movie's point.
difficult to be a
Exactly.
woman. So the same tried, truistic bullshit that they've been propagating in
No.
every new wave feminist film.
No,
No.
no. New wave feminism doesn't doesn't propose Ochelonian concepts.
No. New wave feminism is awful.
Yeah, there is no Ochelonian concepts in there, bro. Which is a word I just made up.
Let's go with it.
For the last 45 years in the United States is now essentially telescoped into this one speech from America Ferrera, including
Wrong.
a few cutaway shots of Margot Robbie looking up adoringly at America Ferrera as she explains that it's super hard to be a woman. It's so damn difficult to be a woman. You know why? Because of the patriarchy. Because
Must
of
be hard being so
men.
fragile, Ben.
That's the actual story of the film. And then they make a couple of other dumb references, right? The Zack Snyder cut. The men, they like the Zack Snyder cut.
That was one
hilarious.
of the jokes that was definitely one of the jokes I laughed louder at because did they also make a cryptocurrency joke
I think they did,
there
yeah.
as well? Because that's another that's the crossover there, you know?
Or it may not have been about cryptocurrency, but it was them explaining stocks or something like that.
Yeah, something like that. Oh, they were talking about like investment banking and diversifying assets and stuff.
Yep. Those were so
Wow,
funny. The
that's terrible. Okay, fine.
stereotype. of
It's so
men
funny because
explaining
that
shit.
type of man where they like watch the economy videos are just scams.
Yes.
Then they say, you know what we need to
This
do?
is
We need to
great.
disabuse all of these Barbies of the patriarchy. How are we going to do this? We need to allow them to live with the cognitive dissonance required to be a woman under the patriarchy. That's a line from Barbie. Now again, they keep doing this. They keep having Barbie drop these extremely
cognitive
literate and
dissonance.
well-articulated lines, but she's supposed to be a plastic doll idiot.
Authority should derive from the consent of the governed, not from the threat of force.
That's
Based.
a different Barbie. And
Yeah,
also,
that's not-
would you
that's
believe
not
it? They kind of
stereotypical.
make the same jokes in Toy Story. Doesn't Ken betray them?
Yes, he does.
It doesn't matter. What is their actual strategy? So they have 48 hours to stop this vote, which shouldn't be happening in the first place because it makes no plot sense. Because the men are fascists and the women are victims. But
No. Nobody says the only time fascism is mentioned is when the girl does it to hurt Barbie's feelings.
Yeah.
somehow they've been given 48 hours to stop the vote. So what are they going to do to
Although
stop this
taking
vote?
power,
How are they going
forcing
to do
a
it?
vote
Well,
in a
they're
sham
going to
vote is
separate
kind of
the men
fishy. It's exactly what Russia
and the
does.
women.
Barbie!
No, because Russia doesn't actually have a democratic. This would actually be what this is women just choosing not to vote is really what's happening there.
Yeah, sure. But we also didn't see how much of a choice they got.
As soon as they're unbrainwashed, they're presented with the choice.
That's what I'm saying, is that we didn't see that they actually
Yeah,
got a
and
choice
also,
not to vote or
let's
not.
see if Ben picks up on this, how they used men's excessive proneness to violence in order to gain power. Let's see if Ben picks up on that point.
They're going to turn all the Barbies against the
because
Kens.
men think that they're in power because they're able to be violent and oppressive, right? That's literally dialed into it.
Yeah.
Where you hear these people, and that's all it comes down to, is that men are stronger than women, and women don't work on oil rigs at frequent as a rate as men. So
I mean, that's an aspect of fascism as well.
Oh yeah,
there is undertones of it, right? He's semi-correct, but it's not that hard to be semi-correct on this point. There's nuance to it, which is the entire fucking point that obviously the filmmakers were trying to get across.
Weird how also people are gaslit, who are the same people on both sides, are gaslit into turning against each other.
Yes.
In order for a democratic process to be pushed as well.
To occur,
there's a couple of really deep concepts written very subtly into this script that they're able to do because they're not spending time explaining how they get out of the Barbie world.
Yes.
So subtle. The symbolism is
You know
so
who also doesn't explain stuff? Kubrick.
Yes.
subtle. Turn all the women against the men and you will save society. That's the message that you could be shoveling directly into the brain of your 8-year-old girl if you so choose this weekend.
No.
Maximum volume.
So they literally say this: get the Barbies away from their Kens. How are they going to achieve this? Well, they're going to make the men complacent.
Wait till you find out how suffrage happened, Ben. Coincidence, it happened at the same time World War I did. Wow. How do you think women were able to gain the right to vote? Is it maybe because all the men were dying in trenches in World War I? Because of men's prone to violence? It's even historical epic in many ways with the Barbie movie.
And then take their power. This is how women have achieved power. Now, let me just digress.
No, that's how women gained the right
briefly
to vote.
Here, in how women actually achieved power in Western civilization. The answer is that they lobbied men and men gave it to them.
No.
Okay.
They call it like Bloody Thursday or something like that in Seneca Falls. People think that it was like, oh, they just did a Martin Luther King, I Have a Dream peaceful protest where they marched with their picket signs. And then after that, they were like, hey, maybe we should give women the right to vote. The president himself told the police who were there breaking up the protest violently to teach women lessons. Women were permanently crippled and disfigured because police intentionally threw them on the ground and put their knees on their arm and broke their arms, dude. It was brutal what they did to women. There's literal accounts of them mudhole stomping women's faces in during arrest. All right? And a few months after that, because it was so brutal, a few months after that, Congress made it so women gained the right to vote and the president lost power, who literally used fascist violence to beat women down and cripple and disfigure them. They didn't just ask nicely for it.
Is the actual answer.
As Jimmy, what is it? Jimmy Lai would say, much blood was shed for it. Many people died for it.
As to how women achieve power in Western civilization. The amendment to the Constitution that allowed women to vote was passed solely by men because women couldn't vote. It turns out there are a lot of good-hearted men out there who like women.
Black men, by the way. Black men, in large part, were the ones who did it. Not white men, Ben. Just so you know that. Sure, whites still had the majority, but this was like a black Republican type thing that came out of the Harlem Renaissance movement, right? And women, which you believe it or not, this helped fuel the KKK reemerge. Women heard funky music coming out of the ghettos in the Harlem Renaissance, and the women went out there to get their boogie down, right? This is the Roaring 20s. This is when rock and roll infects people. Right? So women are going out there because they couldn't help but dance to this music coming out of the neighborhoods, but the uppity whites are like, why are our neighbors so loud, right? And they're looking down on these people being like, oh, they're so unruly and loud. And then they're seeing white women going over there because they actually haven't had their souls completely drained from them, and they like the music and the art, and they come into this awakening, right? So the Harlem Renaissance literally birthed the suffrage movement in New York.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
And who want women to be able to live lives that they want. It turns out that many of us are husbands and fathers. Many of us have daughters. Many of us love the people we're married
including
to.
you, and you missed
Turns
all
out
the
that
fucking points.
That
you
actually describes a
fucking idiot.
huge number of Western men, that we are not your enemies. And yet the entire premise of the movie is that what actually happened in the feminist movement is that women seized the power away from the men. I'm sorry to break it to you, ladies. It ain't true. It ain't true. This notion that women vote as a block is not true. Married women vote very much like their husbands, actually. Single women vote more like a block.
No. Okay, first of all, women largely, and I mean like largely, vote Democrat. Just like when the parties were flipped, they always voted Republican. That's why they didn't want to give women the right to vote specifically. Just like today, how we don't want to make Washington, D.C. a state, it's specifically because the conservative side of the government knows that it will mean the other side is going to get more power than them. So they specifically are limiting it. That was one of the main factors in suffrage. It wasn't just because they hated women or anything, but because they knew that the Republicans at the time would be gaining more seats and have more control over them, and they would have to give up more of their assets and slaves and things. And slavery was over. But, you know, it's just the same thing that repeats over and over again.
Block now than they did before. But it turns out that people are individuals, and some women vote one way and some men vote another way. But again, the idea here is very simplistic: men versus women, battle royale, and that's what this literally turns into, a battle royale between the women and the men. But really, it's about getting the men to fight each other. They bring all the Barbies one by one. They distract them. They bring the Barbies in one by one.
Crazy, because this has never happened. This has never happened, especially with governments.
They unbrainwash them. How do they unbrainwash them? Well, they tell them truths like, any power you have must be masked under a giggle. I have a question. I mean, I work with a lot of women. Do they feel like the power that they have has to be masked under a giggle? Was this film written in 1943? Who wrote this film? Well, we know who wrote this film. A feminist writer who gets paid millions of dollars to make horse. One of them says, we have to reject men's advances without damaging their ego. Or theoretically, you could just reject men's advances and damage.
Yeah, or they die. Or they die.
Yeah.
Literally, like, the girl from Northern Iraq posted this thing about how she had like turned down a guy, and then he immediately was really angry after she turned on this guy in Northern Iraq, and I just was like, wow, it's wild to me that it's legitimately dangerous for many parts of the world for women to reject men. Look at China, like Egypt. That one girl rejected a guy and he cut her head off in front of the university. You know, you see this all the time in a lot of the tribal regions in northern Iraq, where you have a lot of violence against women over marriage proposals and things like that. I'm sure it happens in southern Iraq. I'm just not as plugged into southern Iraq. But, you know, everyone knows, not everyone, but more people should see the videos that come out of China when women reject men. You know?
It's wild.
And that whole thing about the undertone of violence.
But the crazy thing as
any
well
woman
about,
on a dating app can show you how immediately attraction turns hostile. Any woman can show you the undertone of violence in men. Just by opening
the wild
the
thing
dating
about
app.
China too is that nobody will step in because domestic violence is not the problem, their problem. So like women will just get beaten on the street and nobody
Beaten to
gives a
death.
fuck. Yeah, it's wild.
There you go. Because what do you care? You have to pretend to be
The videos that you see coming out of China like that's what happened to women when they asked for the right to vote in Seneca Falls.
Yeah.
confused about money. Is this a real thing? Like, do women pretend to be confused about money so that men will explain it to them? This is also it's such claptrap.
Ben, women who gaslight, yes, women who gaslight do that, and that was the whole thing is that they were gaslighting. And then even after they got control through gaslighting and being shady and shitty, they realized that it even wasn't the right thing to do.
And then my very favorite, do you want some pants? Because that's really what this is about, is women really, really want to wear pants. That demonstrates the power of the patriarchy is that men really don't want women to wear pants, and women really, really want to wear pants.
Love your leg warmers.
Nice ass cut.
And then it's, all the men being victimized, all the Kens being victimized by these various tactics, up to and including Ryan Gosling hitting on a trans woman, meaning a dude who has a voice deeper than Ryan Gosling's, which is an actual scene in the film, which is just great. Okay, so then
play the scene.
I don't remember that at all.
Final step. Finally, the women have been disabused.
Based
so now
on
they're going to play
Gosling.
the ultimate prank. The ultimate prank is that they are going to turn the men against each other. How are they going to turn the men against each other? They're going to turn the men against each other by switching partners.
Using their fragility.
Get together.
Ben.
Yes, because that definitely, using jealousy against men definitely doesn't happen when gaslighting happens. Ben, you're correctly identifying that like the Barbies are doing like kind of shitty things to the Kens here, but you have to remember the Kens are being shitty as well, But everyone is doing gaslighty, shitty things to each other.
Barbie is going to be with Ken, classic Barbie and classic Ken. They're going to be together, but then they're going to move on to the other Kens, and the Kens are going to start fighting each other over the ladies because they're going to switch over. Now, not to put too fine a point on this, but this makes no sense at all. Because guess what would happen if a bunch of beautiful women decided to switch to other men simultaneously? You know what the men would do? They would throw a party.
Oh my God.
Wait, good. So you don't love your wife. Good to know, Ben.
Oh my God.
If an attractive woman came up to me and was like, Ben, fuck me in my pussy, I would be so excited. That's never happened to me before.
So they turn the men against each other. And then we get a 20-minute long segment of the Kens fighting each other using various implements ranging from like small bows and arrows with sticky.
This was 20 minutes? This was like a brief scene. And they like...
I don't know. It went for a while.
Like it was going on and then it like cut to different things and then it cut back and it was going on. But like screen time total. Also, what about the John Cena and his wife cameo? I think it's his wife, right?
I don't know.
They might just be dating.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
Cups at the end to tennis rackets. And that turns into a musical number.
And you fucking loved it.
What does any of this have to do with the plot? Nothing. Literally nothing. It's just a 15-minute digression because they wanted to insert a crappy musical number with not particularly good dance.
She looked like a wrestler, the other mermaid at least. Certain builds that I see in like wrestling now. And it's cool because they're actually like, there's like a lot of, it's mainly because of Ronda Rousey being able to headline UFCs. But like they actually like made it so the women weren't just like fake tits.
Yeah.
In the
They're
WWE.
actually like kind of fit.
I shouldn't say it like that. That sounds very derogatory.
Artificial bobs.
And then what are the women doing during this time? The women are voting. The women are voting. So now we know the Democrats.
Just saying boob job is fine. Fake tits is kind of like, I'm talking to a broad later.
She got some fake tits.
This is actually, he was a crackhead, but I rented a room from him. And he was like, basically, he was like, the bank was foreclosing on his house because he bought too much crack. So he was looking to like figure out who to scam next by basically like trying to like get them to sell a house and like fuck them over. And he's like, so he's coming out of the bathroom and he used an electric razor and there's just the micro hairs all over his collar. This guy is so Italian. He's like, yo, I wanted to look nice because it's abroad.
You famously said that the name Fredo was like the N-word for Italians.
Yes, that was a
strategy.
mistake.
The Democratic turnout strategy in 2024 is going to be to get all of the Republicans.
I'm hurting my voice by doing the typical man voice. That's how interesting I am.
The Italian
fight with one another using tennis rackets while they go and they do the voting, apparently.
The fact that it's like they wrote songs like in just for Ken. Like they didn't cast a Barbie who could sing. That's like the weirdest part for me is that it's just like they casted Ryan Gosling just to have him sing songs, it seems.
Yeah.
Exactly, basically how it was. The matriarchy.
No.
The matriarchy is reestablished. No. And Ken, who is now really sad because he's lost his power, and all he wanted in the first place was just to be treated decently by Barbie.
No.
Is he treated decently at the end by Barbie? Of course he isn't. That would be silly. At the very end, he is told that he needs to learn to live without Barbie.
I just don't know who I am without you.
You're Ken.
But it's Barbie and Ken. There is no just Ken.
He, who was literally created as a doll to be with Barbie, he needs to learn to be apart from Barbie, and she needs to learn to be apart from him, because atomistic isolation and loneliness is the best way to find fulfillment, ladies and gentlemen. It'll be best for Ken if he never sees Barbie again. It'll be better for
Ben. She's empowering Ken in this scene.
Yeah, literally. It's literally about making him realize who he is by himself.
Yeah, he literally puts on a shirt that says, I'm Knuff after that, Ben. It couldn't be any more like obvious and on the nose.
Couldn't be more clear.
for Barbie if she never sees Ken again. Secular humanism is at its finest. We've reached the apotheosis. Men and women don't belong together. They belong very, very much apart. This is
all the other Barbies and Kens get together at the end. It's just the typical Ken and Barbie.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not even typical Ken. He's just Beach.
Topped off by Issa Rae calling somebody a motherfucker. Again, perfect for your 7-year-old girl who loves Barbie dolls. Just perfect for her. And so we learn that men and women...
PG-13.
Ben
loves Barbie dolls.
Ben.
Just perfect for her.
Those are not Barbies, Ben. Those are clearly some other princess doll that wants to be Barbie, but isn't. Okay? I know Barbies when I see them. It's not this. If somebody's like, actually, those are Barbies, that's like the new Barbie design and remake, I may just have to go slaughter everyone.
And so we learn that men and women...
There's just no way there was a Barbie redesign without me knowing about it, is all I'm saying.
are supposed to be separate. They're not supposed to be together. And that maybe the matriarchy will allow the men not to be on the Supreme Court of Barbie Land, but maybe they can get some lower circuit court judgeships. This is what we learn. And we learn one day the Kens might have as much power and influence in Barbie world as women have in the real world. Because, of course, women are again, just absolutely subjugated in the real world. You think that's the end of the movie? Wrong. This thing has more endings than Lord of the Rings. So, ending number 1 is we find out that Ken is going to live apart from Barbie.
It's almost like there are character blocks.
Crazy. Every character that they actually use and introduce is actually written with a transformation and like ending.
Crazy.
Man, it's almost like everyone had a character that they could attach with that got their own ending. And if you didn't think Ken got a happy ending, you're just dumb. Ken and Barbie definitely have the most milquetoast ending, and that's the point. All the other characters have better endings.
Barbie, and he's going to find himself in being Ken. Ugh, the utter joy of self-exploration. Next, we get an ending in which the CEO of Mattel, who's been completely sidelined. You remember the CEO of Mattel?
And it's almost like that there's a culture where the attitude is that to be a man is have women and use women and have sex with women, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Then we see it like being sold by Andrew Tate and stuff.
And all the manosphere.
And went beyond.
Well, you eventually become not 16 years old.
Yeah, exactly.
He was supposed to be chasing them into Barbie Land for the movie. Wrong. This thing has more endings than Lord of the Rings. So, ending number 1 is we find out that Ken is going to live apart from Barbie, and he's going to find himself in being Ken. Ugh, the utter joy of self-exploration.
He's enough.
Next, we get an ending in which the CEO of Mattel, who's been completely sidelined. You remember the CEO of Mattel? Remember he was supposed to be chasing them into Barbie Land for no apparent reason? So he's now in Barbie Land. We don't know why he's there or what he's there to do, except that we need Will Ferrell in the movie to provide no laughs. He doesn't provide any laughs. He shows up.
What are you talking about? Did you see
his motivation throughout this movie has been completely inconsistent. He started off wanting to put Barbie back in Barbie Land so that they could make money. And then he is told at one point that when Kens have taken over Kendom, they will make just as much money. He's like, no, that cannot be. I'm an ideologue on behalf of women. And then he arrives and he is told that America Ferrera wants to make ordinary Barbie, which, by the way, would sell 0. Anyway, that will be profitable. And so now he wants to make ordinary Barbie.
I guarantee you ordinary Barbie is made just as a tie-in from this movie already, and it's already selling and making the money.
100%.
Because he's back to being uber capitalist, evil capitalist. He's making money off of Barbie because, again, Mattel are bad guys, but they're also the good guys. They're kind of the bad guys, but they're mostly the good, but they're a little bad. And so that's ending number 2.
Was there bad
we have the Barbie Ken ending. We have the CEO of Mattel ending, where he says, we'll make ordinary Barbie, and then girls all over the world will know that ordinary
He's also got the salmon
fine and okay. Because it's not that girls play with Barbie because they think that she's beautiful and it's aspirational. No, it's bad. Okay, so then we have ending number 3. You think you're done? Wrong. We're now 2 hours deep into this piece of shit. And we have now dug halfway to China, and we are going to keep digging. So we have ending number 3. Rhea Perlman shows up to lecture us all about the patriarchy again. You haven't heard it enough. We got to beat this sucker into the ground. We are going to take an axe, the blunt end of the axe, and we're just going to beat this thing to death. We're just going to beat it to death. So Rhea Perlman shows up because Barbie.
Ben, she's literally a solution to your main thing that you have a problem with. All right. The whole thing about they couldn't be more obvious because they literally say the whole thing about the woman CEO for Mattel like right before she shows up, right? And how they're pointing out how like all these products that were made for girls that like came and like are owned by men, you know, like even though you showed that Mattel's board is like half and half, crazy, which you like the Supreme Court is kind of half and half too, like in gender. Would you believe it? So she literally shows up to reclaim that whole thing about, oh, Mattel actually is like woke, you know, like, oh, there is women empowerment within Barbie. It wasn't just designed by men. You know, that was a whole thing that they were keeping in their pocket till the end about how it was designed by a mother for her daughter. Brett got it, you know, like, that was the point. That's why the mom and the daughter were the main characters of the movie, not Ken and Barbie. Even though it's called the Barbie movie, would you believe it? It's the mom and the daughter who are the main characters.
Barbie, it turns out, she spent too much time in the real world. That was the patriarchy was terrible. So terrible that she wanted to stop it from happening in Barbie Land. But now she wants to go back there because she actually learned some feelings over in the real world. So she decides that after all, this whole story was just Pinocchio. That she just wants to be a...
Life punched her in the face, as I would call it, right? She feels the existential dread and death, you know? And I think, who says this? I swear it's Marie Williamson who says that, like, the death of childhood is supposed to be, like, metaphorical, but today teens actually want to die or something. It might be a Thumbtown thing, even.
It's two very different things.
I'm not sure, but like that's the whole thing is like Barbie feels existential dread, depression, and sadness. She can't go back to being a child.
Yes.
And being a toy and having just an imagination.
She's grown up.
Yeah. And even hitting it on the nose again, being way too obvious, the fact that she goes to a gynecologist at the end, even though they established that she doesn't have a vagina. You know, and it was also that's a regular woman thing to do. So it's a multi-level joke, Ben, even though that wouldn't make sense if you're such a stickler for what doesn't make sense, because it's already been established that she has their genitals. It still is not caught up. It has not gotten any better.
A real boy. And in what can only be termed a sort of bait and switch, at the very end of the film, just to please the core audience, which is moms and daughters, they insert a bunch of footage, I kid you not, like home video footage.
I think that's the first time that he's actually nailed what the audience
people living their lives in female ways. Because Rhea Perlman is going to show Barbie what it's like to be a human, and then Barbie is going to say that she really wants to be a human just like you, just like you. And so they hit you with the nostalgia play. At the very end, the whole movie, which should have been nostalgia and about moms and daughters, instead, the entire...
What's really interesting about there is the footage that they choose. It's clearly from two different eras, right? So it's clear one is clearly like more like modern day like web, and the other one is just like before my time, like home movies. You know, like the color and the tone and the contrast between those things, it was showing memories of childhood that would connect with both moms and daughters in the audience. This footage was very carefully selected and stylized in the way that it was, Ben.
The entire movie is not that. The entire movie is instead about how men are evil and terrible.
No.
And also Mattel is evil and terrible.
No.
And then at the very end, they shove in this little nostalgia play in the hope that they can buy back the audience at the very end of the film. And Barbie decides that she is going to be a real woman now. Now,
the whole thing about Mattel, where they're like, why is it like this? Because it just is. How capitalism is literally like that, because it just is. You know, it's not necessarily that capitalism is evil. It's like, oh, it's doing weird, evil things every now and then. Why? If anyone really stopped to question it, those things would be eliminated and capitalism would continue to function regardless.
When she goes, that's ending number 3. There's still one more. So when that happens, when she goes to when she goes into this white area that's supposed to be heaven, because
This
the person
dude
who
must
she thought
hate
Rhea Perlman
the
is actually the
movie.
person who actually created the doll. And we're supposed to be, this was supposed to be a secret, is that Mattel was run by men, but the big secret all along is that a woman created the doll. News. It's not a secret. She was CEO of the company for 30 years.
Oh my God, shut the
CEO
fuck
of Mattel
up.
for 30 years, from like 1945 to 1975, until the IRS caught her for tax evasion or something. The big reveal that the patriarchy said that it created Barbie, it didn't. No one thought the patriarchy created Barbie. Again, don't bother with the facts. Don't bother with sense. Don't bother with chronology. Don't bother. None of it matters. So
Facts don't care about
Barbie
your
is now sent
feelings,
back to the
Ben.
real world, and she is now going to experience the apotheosis of what it means to be a human woman. So we've learned early on in the movie when she goes to the real world, she's catcalled by a bunch of the construction guys, and she says, "I don't have a vagina." And she,
Oh my God,
again,
yes. I'm so happy. I'm so happy. He's going to talk about how it doesn't make sense that she goes to the gynecologist.
amazing line for your 7-year-old girl. She'll love it. So apparently,
PG-13,
when she's turned
Ben.
into a real woman, she has now grown a vagina. So the first thing
Also, an 8-year-old knows what a vagina is.
that she does is she goes to the gynecologist because, ladies, the apotheosis of your being is not motherhood. We got rid of that at the very beginning. And it's not being a wife or a partner because women are supposed to be apart from men. It is your vagina. It is that you go to the gynecologist. Ladies, this is what makes you the most human you can be, is that you go to the gynecologist.
You are an idiot.
Dude is probably not aware. Like somehow that makes me feel a little better that he's not involved in his wife's life enough to understand how often that women go to the gynecologist.
Yeah. I imagine that he's
Now, I
very,
could point
very distant from his daughter and very overbearing on his sons. Guarantee it.
Out here that's really transphobic. That according to the same people who made this movie, not all women have
That
vaginas.
is the most ironic
and not all people with
fucking thing I've
penises
ever heard him say.
are men. I could point that out right here because it obviously conflicts with the very ending of the film. But instead, I'm going to go with this one. At the end of all of this, they've boiled down. They have a whole conversation about identity and death and meaning. Right? This whole conversation. What does it boil down to at the very end? What it boils down to at the very end, apparently, is being biologically female is the only thing that matters. And that's it, kind of. That's it. Like, it all just boils down.
And it's about the death of childhood. It's about the death of childhood. Again, this could not be more on the nose with the themes that everything goes wrong when she acknowledges that she's sad and existential dread and wants to die, Ben.
You ever think about death and everybody stops? Because why would you ever think about that in a fantasy perfect utopian world? And the entire movie is Barbie going through an existential crisis of feelings of death and meaninglessness. You are an idiot.
You could almost draw being as a metaphor for puberty, but I think that's reaching.
Yeah.
At the gynecologist. That's female power. Female power is Barbie goes to...
No, it's a joke, Ben. That's like the movie had already ended at that point, and that's like a one less aha joke. You know, it was like, you know, it's a proper joke too, with a lead up and a punchline. Like, you could not get any more of a joke.
Gynecologist, which I don't know about you ladies, but that seems like that's not like the most feminist message. That lady parts are the entirety of the lady.
Like
so excellent job. And with that, we end the film, and then we have the glossy, credits with the Nicki Minaj song, Nicki Minaj version of "I'm a Barbie Girl in a Barbie World." This movie started off as Barbie, and it was Weird Barbie. It was the toy that was handed off to Noah Baumbach and Greta Gerwig, and they played with it too hard. They decided that they were going to turn it inside out. They're going to rip off the hair. They were going to shave it. They were going to make it ugly. They were going to put all sorts of makeup on it. And then
whoa, Ben, it's almost like she becomes a weird Barbie at the end. That is true. That was the point, is that it's a weird Barbie movie, and it's not just like Tinkerbell Adventure. Skylanders, time to knock your children's eyes out. I think that's what they were called. Skylanders. No, Skylanders is Spyro the Dragon, right?
They were going to throw it out in the public.
It's like
now, those of us who are on the right, we look at the politics of this movie, we're like, man, this sounds like a double sandwich. It doesn't sound like a Big Mac. It sounds like a double Big Mac. Right? It sounds like the plot is crap, and the characters are crap, and the humor is crap, and then on top of that, the politics are crap. But
the humor is great. Shut the fuck up.
There's a reason this film has 91% on
The
Rotten.
thing is like there's actually like not politics in it, but also at the same time there is, because it's literally about like amendments, you know. But like even that stuff is like it's just shit that like doesn't matter. It's
Yeah,
like
it's
how
so
George Lucas
secondary.
put way too much focus on like the Trade Federation and the fall of the Republic. Like we didn't need all that. We didn't need anything about the trade federations and the fall of the Republic. Everyone would have understand if you just have two scenes where he says, I'm going to take emergency power, and they vote for it. You have that scene, right? And then you have the scene where the Republic falls. There's the only two scenes you need plot-wise to tell the story of Star Wars. We don't need it fleshed out to talk about how the Republic is actually formed and how many seats are in it and all this like weird bullshit that goes on in those movies.
On Tomatoes. And the reason is, if you are on the left, you can make one of the world's most boring, crappy comedies. You can waste an extraordinary amount of money and talent. You can waste some of the great IP ever created. And as long as you slather it in a bunch of warmed over glorious Steinem nonsense, the critics will just salivate over you. They'll pretend that this is an actual good movie. So here's my prediction in terms of
miserable he is.
The marketing campaign for this movie has been astonishingly good, right? If you walked into this movie and you knew nothing of what I just said, what would you think this movie is? You would think that this movie was probably something like the Disney movie Enchanted, but with Barbie.
Here's the thing about how direct the marketing is for this, is that my mom wouldn't have known this movie was coming out if I didn't tell her it was coming out.
You know what's even funnier?
Know who Margot Robbie is.
You know what's even funnier? I didn't watch any of the trailers. I didn't do anything like that. I went in blind, watched the movie, enjoyed it.
No, I saw one trailer. I sent the trailer to my mom.
Ben went in wanting to hate it, wanting to critique everything. He stretched. He concluded. He made his conclusion at the start based on the previews, and then based everything on that. His entire 43-minute video is a fallacy.
It's going to be Barbie in Barbie Land, and then it's going to be Barbie in the real world, and it's going to be charming, and it's going to be funny, and it's going to be warm-hearted, and it's not going to be vicious and cynical. And it's not going to be what morons talk about at Hollywood cocktail parties. It's just
you
going
are
to be
the
fun.
moron.
It's going
Why can't it be both?
to be a place where a mom might be able to take her 7-year-old or 8-year-old girl and enjoy themselves together, and then walk out with their arms around each other. You might think that's what it was going to be. And undoubtedly, millions of moms and their daughters will think that. That's what you're seeing at the theaters. That's why you're seeing everybody wearing pink to the theaters. It's become like a Star Wars kind of thing, right? It's an actual cosplay of it. The number of moms who are going to take their daughters back to the theater week 2, good luck with that.
I would say it
Really,
again.
good luck with that. Hollywood decided to empty out its own IP here. They decided they were going to take a golden piece of IP and they were just going to smash.
Meanwhile, they're literally running with the ball trying to figure out how to create the magic again because of how well it's doing.
Smash it and turn it into Weird Barbie. And I got to tell you, and this is going to have ramifications for Barbie, the brand. I don't know why Barbie, the brand, would hand this property over to people who clearly hate the property. In the real world, the patriarchy rules. Men are really bad. Women need to separate off from men and hate men in order to be unblinded to the patriarchy, and then they can overthrow the patriarchy and create paradise. That is the thesis of the film. Last comment. Whenever I do film reviews like this, lengthy film reviews of movies like this, the left is always like, why are you taking this so seriously? How dare you take this so seriously? Well, because this is a movie.
And you're not taking it seriously.
Where hundreds of millions of dollars will be expended to get people to watch it. It has a heavily political message.
You're just stupid.
It is explicitly designed to
to
divide men from women.
Like a lot
it has these negative messages directed at kids.
I know you're capable of doing it. Because I know you're like trained in classical film and shit, bro. I know you're capable of doing it.
To be a kid's movie, it's rated PG-13. It is not marketed to PG-13. It is marketed to PG. It is marketed to moms who are going to...
They literally marketed it to like the TikTok audience, bro. 8-year-olds are not the core customer for TikTok. 13-year-olds are. It's PG-13, Ben.
Skip the PG-13 rating and bring their daughters there anyway.
If
it's a culturally relevant moment. A very culturally relevant moment.
Crazy. Would you believe it?
So
I saw
the entire left
Freddy
attempts
versus
to play
Jason
the face tattoo syndrome.
My dad.
Watch as we take a piece of children's IP and wear its skin around like a mask, like Hannibal Lecter. And we notice it. And then they're like, you noticed it? You're obviously very upset. I find it upsetting when material that is based on children's IP, marketed to little girls, actually ends up being angry feminist claptrap that alienates men from women, undermines basic human values, and promotes falsehood all at the same time.
This just shows how shallow.
I think a lot of people are going to have rights to
entire
that.
worldview is.
We'll see what the income trajectory of this film is. By the way, it's just going to die in China. The overseas market for this film. Good luck with the Chinese Communist government.
About Ben, it was about how the patriarchy also oppresses men, Ben.
Yes.
Right?
Hilarious.
The reason Ken feels so sad is because of patriarchy.
Mm-hmm.
He has to overcome patriarchy at the end. That's Ken's transformation, Ben.
Like, it just shows how shallow and entitled his worldview is.